Excellent. We're now recording, and I would like to welcome everyone to Greenlane. Please make sure that you are muted. And oh, sorry, I needed to let you know that I'm looking at the script that Theresa so kindly gave me, and I realized I was on page 2 instead of page 1. So we'll start at the top here instead. I'm Robin Forster with Feel So Alive, as most of you know, and I'm past chair of Greenlane. And I'd like to welcome you and thank you all for coming, whether you're here live or on the replay. And just to let you know, I will be looking down at my notes. And the Greenlane, and we appreciate you hanging in with us during these COVIDian times as we all try to pivot. And Greenlane is trying to bring you the information that you need as businesses and nonprofits to be able to pivot and function. We would like to thank the Greenlane Board and Events Committee for their continual work on bringing us topics that are timely and informative. And we also ask if anyone has any ideas or suggestions or has run into something in the community that they think we need to address, please share that information with us. And we'd like to thank Tammy, especially for keeping all of this together. And Tammy, you're here, so thank you very much. And I'd like to give kudos to Theresa, our current chair for the last 2 years, I think. She has stepped up and she is just doing a Herculean effort to keep Greenlane going. And I think that we all know everyone's bandwidth is stretched pretty far. And I just really appreciate all the work she's doing. And if anybody would like to volunteer to help us, we would appreciate it on whatever level and amount of time that you can do. So just a few reminders for this meeting. We want to have a clean recording. Oops, I need to let someone in. There we go. We want to have a clean recording, so please mute yourself during the meeting. And then we will call on you and you can unmute yourself or we will unmute you. And we know that things come up, so if you need to step away or if there's a distraction in your environment, go ahead and stop your video and then you can step away and take care of it. And that way it's just less distracting and a little bit cleaner looking for other folks as they're watching this later. And let's see, so what we're going to start with, even though people are still coming in, and I'm glad that they are, it's good to see everyone, we're going to start with introductions. And because it's a fairly small group today, what I'll do is I'll call on you and we'll do individual introductions. And no, you don't have to be showing your face. And yes, it would be very nice if you could, but we understand how that goes. And what we'd like to hear from you is your name and your business or nonprofit, and then something that's a continuing challenge for you and or a coping strategy or skill that you've figured out. So we will start to my right, and that is Doug. So Doug, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, everybody. I am Doug James with Technoprint. We're a commercial print shop. We continue to struggle that some of our clients have just sort of disappeared. They are AOL with this whole situation. There are a few others that are busier than ever, but I kind of struggle as an outside sales rep, making sales calls and trying to continue my life. So keep on working on it, that's for sure.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much, Doug. And Brandy, you are next on the list.
Hi, Brandy, Crawford, Ferguson, and Mackenzie River Trust. We're a local land conservation group. I think all of you probably here today know that, now that I'm looking. Challenges, the fact that we can't gather as a group, right? I mean, that's okay. We're adapting and figuring that out. But as far as being able to connect our work and these, we're starting a really large campaign right now that we're having to totally rethink how to connect donors to these projects that we have a timeline on. And so it takes more capacity, but we're figuring it out, and people still care and want to see this work continue. And so that's been really inspiring. But yeah, evolving as businesses and organizations and meeting people where they're at, where they feel safe is important, being thoughtful of each other.
Excellent. Thanks, Brandy. And Kathy, you are next on my list.
Um, my name's Kathy Ging. I've been selling real estate for 34 years in Lane County. And I've sold over half the organic farms that sold in Eugene's Farmers Market, the organic ones over 20 years ago. So I have a long history of working with the organic movement. And right now, my big one-woman mission is to try to get people to buy locally all kinds of products. So that's what I'm doing and posting to people. And I hope to learn some more. By the way, I have every article saved for the last 39 years on agriculture, which I'm trying to get scanned into a computer and on little flash drives to try to make an Oregon treasure of agriculture information.
Wow. Kathy, that sounds amazing. And I'm sure that we need to plug you into resources so that that's a little bit easier to do, but that's fabulous. Okay, next, and I'm going to say your name wrong. Liquid, is that right?
There we go. Yeah, Lisa Quaid.
Ah, okay.
That's my screen name. Hi, Lisa Quaid. I'm here as a guest. I'm formerly with Willamette Valley Grown and Crafted, which used to be the Sustainable Food Alliance, and formerly with Food for Lane County. Now I'm involved with Positive Community Kitchen, and very interested in food, and that's what I'm doing here today.
Excellent. Well, welcome. We love having guests. And let's see, Sarah, you're next on my list.
Alrighty. Hi, everybody. Sarah Whitney here, Longtom Watershed Council, and I run the Urban Waters and Wildlife Program, which works with businesses, commercial and industrial, churches, schools, etc. Basically anything that's not residential at this point, to help them improve the habitat and the habitat condition on their site, as well as managing the stormwater that comes off of their site. So this program right now is expanding exponentially. I'm going into Springfield with the support of a much broader partnership base. And my primary challenge right now is a really good one, but is how to manage that extreme growth in this time of quietude, where I have new designers coming on with me, and drafters and project managers, and training them from afar and coordinating with them is going to be a really big lift. But it's one that I'm excited for. It has fantastic long-term benefits, but how to get over this little hiccup of bringing everybody up to speed together is a little challenging.
Wow, that sounds like a lot, Sarah, but you're right. I mean, how exciting.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
That's so cool. And Thomas, you are next on my list.
Excuse me. Okay, so I connect and protect, and it has been challenging in these times to do both, but I continue to strive to connect us both digitally as well as give other ways of positive connection when we have to get out there and interface. But I'm also currently working to try to get out there and help us keep our economy rolling and find ways to do business, so that connection part is I think the most important part. There's many aspects to our own collaborative here that I think we could help each other out even more.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm glad that everyone is here. And for those of you watching on the replay, we're glad that you're watching us on the replay. It's awesome. Now we move into member announcements and kudos. We have about 5 minutes or so. If anyone has an announcement or a kudo, just raise your hand. Yeah, Brandy, yeah.
Thanks. Just wanted to share, speaking of still getting work done, the trust just signed the paperwork to acquire a new property in the Mohawk watershed in Marcola, 120 acres that had been owned by the same family for 150 years, the Spores family. It's an incredible property. It's been 2 years of working on this project, and completely donor supported to be able to purchase the property, which I really believe says a lot about our community during this time. It was all raised during COVID, and it reaches from the hillsides of the Mohawk Valley down to the wetlands all the way to the Mohawk River. It's really spectacular. So just wanting to share some really good news that you know, we're still able to protect our natural areas and our amazing local streams and rivers.
How many acres again was that?
120.
Wow, that's fantastic. Great job, Brandy.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
like I said, it says a lot about our community and our commitment to a healthy community, right? Our individuals in our community wanting to all come together and take care of each other, like this group.
Oh, Brandy, thank you for that positive news. Yeah, that's very exciting. In fact, it almost has me in tears. It's so awesome. Yeah, so thank you. Any other announcements or things that we should share, or kudos? I did my kudo for Theresa at the top of the program instead of saving it, but I had to give her a shout out. She's just done so much. Yes, Sarah, please.
Well, I just saw our executive director, Clinton Begley, put out a call for ideas for how the council can continue to connect with the community. So if you have ideas, please reach out to us. That's either Facebook or just, you know, email us through the website. But we used to do fairly regularly scheduled public meetings that would have speakers and educational moments. And we know a lot of people are doing Zoom calls. There's been some really successful speakers over Zoom, absolutely. And maybe that's what people just want more of. But now's your chance to let us know what you'd like.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? Doug, anything happening over at Greeters or the Chamber that you'd like to let us know about?
Well, Greeters continues to have our Zoom meetings on Friday mornings. We start the meeting at 8, but you can get on anytime between 7:30 and 8 for networking and just chatting and whatnot. We're getting about 40 people per meeting, so that's nice. We're continuing to have kind of a nice core of people continuing with Greeters in the Chamber. And yeah, so Friday morning, you can find a link on Facebook. If you search for Greeters, Chamber of Commerce Greeters, you'll find a link today. And I'd love to have you join us. You don't have to be a chamber member for these Zoom meetings, so feel free to join and see if you like it.
Excellent, thanks. Yes, Thomas.
On that note, I'd like to just chime in for the Government Issues Committee. There's still plenty of conversations on homelessness, as well as what we're going to do about our schools and education in these COVID times. So there's lots of participation and trying to involve businesses to come up with solutions for all these subjects.
Excellent, good to know.
I have one comment. This is Kathy Ging. By the way, I should have said that I'm a guest, not a member at this point. But I do want to say I listened to a radio show a couple of days ago, and the man predicted that by the end of the year, 85% of independent restaurants will be out of business. And so this is another thing that I'm really urging people to try to buy at the local venues rather than the national franchises.
Interesting. Thank you, Kathy. That's not a wonderful statistic to hear about, but being informed is better than not being informed. So thank you for that. And I think if that's it, then we'll move into the really exciting part of our program. And this month we have Rachael Ward from the Willamette Food and Farm Coalition. And our title is Trends in Local Food and Resiliency, Lessons Learned. And she's here to share with us some local trends in food and a little bit about Rachael for those of us who don't know her. She has served as the program coordinator for the WFFC since January 2020. Prior to her current role, she was the event coordinator for Fill Your Pantry in fall 2019. Rachael brings 9 years of experience in the nonprofit sector at the intersection of nutrition, agriculture, and public health. When she's not working with WFFC, Rachael serves as the project manager for Farmers Market Coalition, where she helps farmers market, farm stands, and CSAs offer nutritional incentive programs like the Double Up Food Bucks across the country. And I think that was everything that I wanted to say about Rachael. Besides, let's, even though she's not here, give her a round of applause, and that'll give me a second to pull in the Zoom. Okay, can you all see this? You should be seeing Theresa's. Okay. Now I know that there's some interesting things with sound, and so let me go ahead and start this. If you can hear me, Doug and Brandy, because I can see you, give me a thumbs up if you can hear it okay. And if not, let me know, because I think there's a secret button someplace I'm supposed to push. Okay, so let's hear from Theresa and her interview.
Food and Farm Coalition, and she's the program coordinator, and she'll be chatting with us a little bit today about.
Yeah, it's a little quiet. Turn it up if you can.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. Because I've got that turned up as much as I can. Let me start it again and see what y'all think.
It's happening with local food, and I'll let her kick it off, and then I'll have a series of questions of things that might be of interest to our Greenlane members. Hey, Rachel.
Is it still pretty quiet? Okay, let me try one other.
Having a hard time hearing.
Okay, let me try one other thing. Okay, I don't think I'm going to be able to hear you all, but let's see if this works better.
Hi, thanks for having me. So maybe tell us a little.
Okay, so it sounds still not helpful.
Probably not the loudest.
Okay, let me. Okay, so let's try this.
A little bit about your organization, your mission, and kind of the overall purpose for why you guys exist.
Yeah, so Willamette Farm and Food Coalition has been around the Valley as a nonprofit organization for over 40 years. And our main mission is to facilitate and support the development of a secure, sustainable, and inclusive food system in Lane County. So we run a variety of programs really focused on connecting local food and local farmers to the consumer, to community members.
Excellent, super important. So through this strange time of COVID, what are the trends that you've seen over the last 6 months with food in Oregon, and what about trends in local food?
Yeah, so we definitely have seen, the scarcity of food in grocery stores at the beginning of the pandemic, of the outbreak. And as that was happening, and a lot of people were kind of panic buying and trying to stock up on different types of food, we saw this big shift, even more so than normal, to folks looking to local sources for where to purchase their food. And so I think that is, those two questions kind of go hand in hand. We've seen, some breaking supply chains at the national and the global scale, but then a strengthening of local food supply chains, and really a shift in values and a shift in interest in local foods and procuring them straight from farmers.
Excellent. What's happening right now in general in your industry? If you can kind of look at what you've learned and what you're seeing, what's going on with the industry right now?
Yeah, so within local foods, I think that people are kind of like, wow, you know, all of a sudden there's all this interest in local food and local farms. And I think here in Lane County, we have a really strong interest already. But I know on the national scale, other communities are kind of struggling with that sudden interest. It's a good time to be a farmer. Your services are in high demand. And nonprofit organizations and other organizations that are kind of acting as facilitators of the local food system and connectors, what we're really doing is trying to figure out the best way that we can support these connections, and how we can be innovative and adaptable in order to meet those rising demands and also to support farmers at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been quite a time. Are you seeing an increase in interest and demand for local food? I mean, that's kind of tied with what you were talking about, but are you seeing that? And are you seeing it the whole time?
Yeah, pretty much from the beginning, I would say. Within, a couple of weeks, early March, we were starting to see an increase in folks wanting to try to find local food. We were getting a lot more phone calls, a lot more emails, because we do put out a food resource guide called the Locally Grown Guide, that has listings of farmers, CSA programs, farmers markets, where folks can go and shop and look local foods. And that actually, coincidentally, the pandemic kind of timed perfectly with our release of that guide. We released that guide for 2020 in April. And so as we were preparing to release that guide, we were getting a lot of requests with a strong focus, I would say, on people looking for ways that they can source food in a socially distant type of way, or low contact or no contact delivery methods. And while that demand was growing, we were also seeing farmers being really innovative and adaptive in how they were delivering their products to the community. So a lot of farmers started online ordering systems, or started to offer delivery, home delivery, or pickup, no-touch pickup. And so we started to collect that information from farmers and actually created an addendum to our Locally Grown Guide that is COVID specific, that looks at the ways that farmers are adapting their methods, and it has a listing of farms that have adapted their methods in some way, and they're able to go in and regularly update that.
Excellent. Now, is that related to your website? I mean, do they go to your website, or is it really only in the print form?
So it is on the website. Both the online version of the Locally Grown Guide and that addendum that I mentioned are on our website.
And then do you guys have an app, or is it just, do you have a mobile-friendly site for your website?
It's pretty mobile friendly. We're actually in the middle of switching it over to a more mobile friendly site. So if it's not, we're working on it. And that addendum is really just a Google spreadsheet right now. That's what it looks like. So it can be pretty friendly.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because we found at LTD that we have about almost, it was 68% of our customers are accessing our website through our mobile site. And ours is not exactly mobile friendly, so we're moving towards that, but we just see that that's where the traffic is. So I just wonder if you're seeing that also.
Yeah, definitely. We have a WordPress site right now that I think we've had for at least a decade, I want to say. And we're in the process of switching over to a MailChimp background website, which is what a lot of organizations use for their newsletters, so it can be very mobile friendly and adaptable. So
yeah, good idea. Has the closing and then now the slow reopening of many local restaurants affected your organization's work? And if so, how is that?
Yeah, so that affected Willamette Farm and Food Coalition mostly in terms of our revenue and our funding. So we do rely on a lot of the local restaurants to offer like percentage or fundraising nights where you go on a certain day, certain time, and they'll donate a percentage of their sales back to us as a nonprofit. And we had several lined up for this year that we realized very quickly after a lot of the closings are happening, that they probably are likely not to happen this year. And of course, knowing that some local restaurants are really struggling with having that time where they were closed and trying to figure out the safest way to reopen, we just don't feel good about necessarily asking restaurants to donate their proceeds at this point. And that was a decent chunk of our budget, I would say. So we were trying to figure out other ways to make up that funding.
So is there any of the national bills or anything that affect nonprofits that you guys can draw on? Like the CARES Act is something that affects transit, but is there anything like that that can help supplement some of that?
Yeah, there was a couple of grant programs that nonprofits are eligible for to apply for, like payroll protection programs and those sorts of things. Willamette Farm and Food Coalition right now is a really small organization, so I'm only a part-time staff member, and then we have 3 volunteer board members right now. So we did not have the capacity to apply for one of those big federal grants. Unfortunately, we did not have the capacity.
That's a tricky deal. Are there any new connections or synergies that you've seen over the last 6 months since the outbreak? Kind of anything that you hadn't anticipated when this happened that kind of were new forging relationships, et cetera, that have occurred?
Yeah. Well, Willamette Farm and Food Coalition has always been a close partner with Food for Lane County, the regional food bank here. But we found a different way and a new way to partner. So Governor Brown actually released a bunch of funds for food banks to source food locally when they were seeing really a rise in the number of folks going to food pantries in search of food. And so Food for Lane County approached us, knowing that we have connections with local farmers, to ask if we could be kind of a middle person to navigate those relationships with farmers so that they could actually do some purchasing from local farms. And that's something that we haven't seen food banks do really in Oregon or in many other places across the country very much of. It's mostly been donation based. So it's really great to work with them. We worked with them over a little under 2 months, and we were able to help them source over 13,000 pounds of food, which was about over $50,000 worth of revenue for local farmers in that short amount of period. And it was great. Restaurants were closing and they were losing their restaurant sales as well. So we were able to be kind of a stopgap and to serve the farmers in that way, and also to get really delicious local food to folks in need.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And also just in our long-term resiliency, that'll probably end up being a relationship that could be really important in the future. That's great. What, if anything, has occurred over the last 6-month period that encourages you as we move into the future? Things that have been kind of bright spots for you and your organization?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it's a great time to be a farmer. It's a great time to work in local food because there is so much interest and growing demand. And that's really been very exciting for me to see, and for a lot of our partners and farmers that we work with to see this increased demand. And the question on everyone's mind is, how do we keep that momentum going? How do we kind of harness that energy that people have for buying locally and sourcing their food locally and getting to know their farmers and how their food is grown? And how do we turn it into true behavior change that changes those larger industrial food systems over time, and can really keep our dollars locally, support our small businesses locally, and support those farmers, as well as, environmental concerns.
Yeah, this next question is related to that. Do you believe an emphasis on local foods supports resiliency, especially in a time of crisis?
Yes, I actually believe that, local food systems help to create resiliency in communities. So when you have a really robust local food system like the Willamette Valley is very fortunate to have, it means that when you have disruptions in the global or the national supply markets, it doesn't affect your food supply as much locally. And I think that can cause communities to become more resilient, less reliant on outside sources in order to support their community.
Yeah, definitely. Any lessons learned? I mean, it sounds like you've had a few that can help us with future planning around that for future resiliency.
Yeah, so I think, farmers are really the root of our food system, right? So we have to make sure that they are supported and taken care of regardless of, what is happening. And starting to think about how can we diversify farmers here in the Willamette Valley? How can we encourage more women farmers, more farmers of color, more LGBTQIA farmers, and really support them in their efforts and their work and help them to grow and scale up to the degree that they want to, so that they can really be competitive in this robust local food system that we have.
Good points. What impact does your organization have on local and regional sustainability efforts? If you can speak to that.
Yeah, so Willamette Farm Food Coalition's focus isn't just on local farmers, but also on farmers and ranchers that do use sustainable growing practices or raising practices. And our role in that really is to spread knowledge and awareness of how food is grown, how people can connect to that, and to raise awareness as well as garner support for farmers that are using those methods.
So you guys doing training, or how does that occur?
So within our locally grown guide, as I mentioned, we have a neat little key that we use when we're listing farmers that talks about their different growing practices. So whether they're certified organic or certified naturally grown, or humanely raised for animals. And we have in the past done some labeling at grocery stores around locally grown products, and you may have seen our labels and all those different color variations on some products in stores. Yeah.
Are you connected to the Oregon Tilt at all?
Yeah, we work with them a little bit through partners. They help to support one of our fall events, the Fill Your Pantry event, which is a bulk buying event for local foods. And they were really great at supporting us and sponsoring us this past year. So we hope to
just because I think it's nice on the state level to be able to have that. What do you see as best practices for supporting the expansion of local food? And are you also working with the city or county to help foster this?
Yeah, so I think we like to say like local food belongs everywhere. I think that, there's always a space for local food. And I know that it doesn't happen overnight. When you think of hospitals or schools or other organizations and businesses that do a lot of food procurement, I think just getting them to start to think about how could we take a portion of our budget that we spend on food and use it to support our local community by buying from local farmers and local growers. And even if that means one vegetable a week is sourced locally at your restaurant or in your hospital cafeteria, that makes a huge difference in the world of farmers and their livelihoods. And so we really, and I think people get hooked on it too. Like it's very much a like taste it, and then it's hard to go back to a mushy grocery store tomato once you've tasted one right off the vine, right? And so we're really trying to get people excited about local food, I think, and show them the value that it brings to their health, to their community. And we've worked a little bit with the city of Eugene to support our events like the Fill Your Pantry and the locally grown guide. They've been excellent supporters of us throughout the year.
Just wonder, are you guys connected to the Sustainability Commission at all? I know they had a food item on their work plan for a few years. I just wondered if that connected with what you do.
Yeah, we've been kind of in constant communication and being updated on their progress.
Okay, that sounds good. How can local people and businesses support your efforts in our region?
Yeah, well, it's a great time to ask that because right now we are in the last 2 weeks of our online summer fundraiser, and we have a goal to reach $10,000 by August 3rd. And so that's the day of your meeting, right? So we'll be on our last day of the fundraiser and doing our last big push. And as I mentioned before, our revenue has definitely been affected by the closures of the restaurants, and so this online summer fundraiser, which we do every year, but is really extra important this year to make sure that we have the funds to continue to grow and to adapt and to innovate throughout the situation that we find ourselves in with COVID and the growing and rising needs. So the link to that is on our social media pages as well as on our website under the donate. We just encourage people to give whatever they can if they're able to, or to share with family and friends. And then in terms of businesses specifically, I would say we're always looking for sponsorships for our locally grown guide and our Fill Your Pantry events. As I mentioned, we're a really small nonprofit with only one part-time, I work 15 hours a week, staff person. And so we rely on a lot of volunteer help to make events happen. And a lot of the events that we do are for the community. They're not necessarily fundraisers for our organization. And so we rely on sponsorships to offset those costs so that we can really return the profits to the farmers.
Good to know. Any last words you want to share or any advice for our Greenlane Sustainable Business members?
Well, I think, they're all in the right place, right? If they're thinking about sustainability, I think food is a huge part of the sustainability movement. And I would really welcome them to reach out to us if they haven't already connected with Willamette Farm and Food Coalition, or if they're thinking about how do I incorporate more local foods into my business, or what can I do to support the local food system. I would love to speak with them and to build those relationships stronger.
And then how do people contact you?
Yes, so they can contact me through email. It's just info@willamettefarmandfood.org. And my email is all over our website as well. So if they go on our website and go under contact, they will see both our phone number and our email.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate what you do. It is so important, and it's just been highlighted because of the disruption in the food chain. And we talked about it in planning parts a number of years ago. We're more resilient by having local food. But until you have something like this happen, you really don't realize how important it is that you can still maintain, an access to food, even if your national or international supply chains are disrupted. I think that's been a real eye-opening thing to me, and I'm sure to many local people, local business people, et cetera, that's been really made my jaw drop. And it's like, okay, thank God that we are able to grow our food here. We have so many dedicated farmers, and that's really been amazing. So I really appreciate your efforts in supporting them.
Yeah, and it's something to think about. I mean, we have disasters all the time too, right? And it's not just giant worldwide pandemics that affect us, but especially here in Oregon, we have fires that we need to worry about. And so I think building that resiliency is important even outside of COVID-19, and something that the local food system has been trying to contribute to for a long time.
Well, again, I really appreciate what you do and taking the time to speak with us today, and look forward to see what's to come with you guys in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I stopped the screen share, and now we're all back in the room. So normally at this point we would be asking our speaker questions, and obviously that would be a bit of a challenge since this was pre-recorded. But are there any questions, or is there any discussion that we would like to have, or folks sharing some comments about our food issues? And I just noticed that Brandy had put a note in the chat. And Brandy, I'm not sure how long ago you did that. Sorry, I just opened it.
Yeah, I was commenting on hearing about the partnership between the coalition and Food for Lane County, and how they stepped up and really evolved, pivoted quick during this time, and were able to help farmers connect with a whole level of needs. And what an amazing win-win for our entire community. So that was really wonderful to hear an example of that partnership coming together like that.
Oh, great. Thanks, Brandy, for doing the context around that. That was helpful. And Kathy has her hand up.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to say the part of the food system that I've been working on for about 35 years is a garden called Liberated Salad. LiberatedSalad.com has a shelf at the Eugene Library, a block at Food for Lane County painted, It has a block at the Wayne Morse Center downtown. Liberated Salad, biodiversity at the table. It is really a garden of 100 different seed packages mixed in one bowl and packaged into 1-inch Ziploc bags. And I've given away about 4,000 packages in the last 35 years to people in 150 countries. I never could figure out how to make any money out of it, so I just gave them away. But it's a very important biodiversity. You can grow food in the Willamette Valley. 5 to 7 times more food can be grown in what's called the cheaper belle cloches, which is the French word for belle, cloche. And you can grow those in like little plastic tubes or those kinds of things rather than those $20,000 greenhouses. Well, I learned to grow food because I got my seeds from Peace Seeds in Corvallis, whom I highly recommend. I've known him for like 45 years, Dr. Alan Capular, top 10 science students at Yale, etc. And the thing is, as I started growing the Liberated Salad, I moved pretty much everything I buy, say by 95% of everything I buy now is organic. And so when I was able to grow a little bit of food to save me some money, then I could even buy my wine would be organic or some beer or stuff like that. So for years, I was reluctant to promote that too much because I didn't want to displace the local or farmers, of which a lot of them my former clients. But now I feel like the time is right to sort of let the cat out of the bag, that you can grow in the Willamette Valley without any food cover. You can start plants at August 1 that will feed you until April 10th. And so that's something I want to share with you. It's not a big money-making enterprise unless somebody figures out how to turn it into a cooperative. Well, that's one thing. The other thing is I got onto the Oregon Tilth Advisory Committee for a couple of years in order to promote some ideas about, I wanted to have every restaurant in Oregon put in a label in the front door that we serve at least one organic meal. Well, even, one of our favorite bakeries, that I won't say the name, but you know who I'm talking about. And they use canola oil, although employees have begged them to use organic oils. They continue to use the genetically modified canola oils, as most people do. So there's only a half dozen, I think, restaurants and cafes that actually do support the organic business. So I'm encouraging Willamette Farm and Food Coalition to try to get a campaign going. And along with that, I suggest you try to get a grant from Oregon Tilth, which basically just hired another 10 or 12 employees about 6 months ago, by the way. But organic, Tilth has some funds, I believe, that would help people. What I wanted to do is I wanted to go into every store and read the labels on the tomato sauce. A lot of that comes from rehydrated tomatoes from California rather than those tomatoes grown here. And that's how our hot sauces are made. So I wanted to go to every ingredient and call the manufacturer and ask them if they could start, getting those from local people and then hooking up that network. So those are some things I wanted to share. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy, for sharing that. And I'm glad that you're hooked up with Rachael and the Willamette Food and Farm Coalition. That sounds like a good connection. And I know that we are running out of time and folks are leaving, which I understand. Any other must-says or quick suggestions? And as usual, we're looking for topics and ideas and suggestions for other people to talk that we would be interested in.
Just so you know, I dropped some links in the chat from our locally grown directory and the coalition that we just heard about.
Oh, super. Thank you, Thomas. I did see that and didn't get a chance to say anything. So thank you for bringing that up. That should make it easier for folks. And otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting and end the recording. And thank you all very much for being here.